how do I say? I grew up in a little town in suburban New Jersey, which is in the United States. And I was pretty much your typical kid. I liked to play soccer. I worked really hard at school. I really liked school. I played lots of sports. I got involved. I worked really hard on my exams and in my tests. And when I was growing up, everyone always said that the end result was going to be college, college, college. Like, you got to work really hard so you can get really successful, so you can get a good test score, and then you'll get a good resume, and then you'll get into college, and then you'll go find success. And so from the time I was really little, your age, I was really working towards that. I was like, how do I work really hard so I can be really successful and have a happy life? And so this really interesting thing happened. I woke up one morning and everything was done. Like, my college applications were out. I'd been accepted into a couple really good schools. I was ready to commit. I was ready to have that dream come true. And I woke up this one morning. I was in 12th grade, so like a senior in high school, and I was like, wow, I know so much about math and history and how to mark my player on the soccer field, but I know not a whole lot about me, like Maggie, and who I am, and what's here on the inside, and what my purpose is. So I was about to go to college and spend all of this money and all of this, time having no idea who I was. And I'd never really left New Jersey, where I was from, and I thought, maybe if I take just a little bit of time off. I was a burnt out kid. I was kind of ready for a break. Maybe if I go travel and just see the world outside of the US, outside of this little town that I'm from, I'll learn more about myself and get my groove back. And you're really lucky you grow up in Dubai, where people are from all over the world and you have experience with so many cultures. But I really didn't have that. I lacked awareness about the world. So long story short, all of my friends, they were going to college. Oh dear, I was supposed to press the clicker. All of my friends were going to college, and I packed up just one little backpack. And I had to fit all of my things inside this one little backpack. This was me when I was 18. And I got a pair of hiking boots and my sandals, and all my friends left for college, and I set out for something called a gap year program. And a gap year is a year on. A lot of people like to call it a year off. We call it a year on. And you travel around the world, and you do different semesters learning about different cultures and different communities. And at one moment, I was learning how to scuba dive and learning about, ecosystems in Australia. And then another moment, we were doing conservation work. We did outdoor survival. We learned about so many things. And it was on that gap year that I started to really come alive again and understand about the world and understand more about different cultures. So for my second semester, I really was good with kids growing up, and I babysat from the time I was 11 or 12. I was a babysitter. So for my second semester of my gap year, I said, I really just want to work with kids, and I want to be really useful. And through that experience, I got placed in a program in northeastern India. Is anyone from India here? Yeah, lots of people in India. From India. So I get placed in this place in India, and I was working with a community, and I was working in a cafe, actually, and we were doing remote medicine. And long story short, I started to meet lots of children who were coming from this place called Nepal. And I had a really good education growing up. I went to a great public school, but I really didn't know a lot about Nepal. I couldn't have totally placed it on a map. I had heard about Mount Everest. I had heard about maybe the capital city of Kathmandu vaguely, but I really didn't know a lot. And I started to meet children, and child after child, coming across the border from Nepal through India, and they were living as refugees. And refugee is a really important word for all of you to know. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's when someone has to leave their country because of civil war or conflict, or because they need to survive. And so I was meeting kids your age and younger who were sleeping under plastic by the side of the road and working and getting into really bad situations. And I started to say, why are these children leaving Nepal, leaving their rural villages and coming here to this project in northeastern India? And we were trying to help, but it was just really difficult. And I started to learn about refugees. And I met my friend Sunita, who's in this picture here. And Sunita had left her village like 8 years before and kind of forgot where she came from, and she left during the Civil War. And so Sunita and I became friends, and Sunita was like, hey, on my school break, do you want to come back with me to my village and we'll try to find where I came from? So I had my backpack and I was like, sure, let's do it. Let's go together and let's try to trace the footsteps of where you came from and learn more about your village. And I knew that that particular region of rural Nepal had lots of kids coming from there. So I was like, okay, let's go. So Sunita and I got on a bus for 2 days. And then we got off at the border and we crossed over on an ox. And we got across the border on an ox with our backpacks. And then we got on another bus and we went up into the Himalayan mountain range, which the whole country of Nepal is Himalayan. And eventually the bus driver kind of looked to the back and he said, okay, girls, it's time to get off. It's the end of the road. And we got off the bus and it was just a beautiful stretch of Himalayan mountains. And from there, we had to start walking and trekking and going through the mountains to find Sunita's village where we knew we had to go. After 2.5 days of walking, and it was so hard, I had blisters on my feet and I could barely move my legs. At one point, climbing up the mountain, I was crying. But after 2.5 days, we reached Sunita's village and we found the house where she had grown up in. And we started to put the pieces together of her story and what had happened. And watching my friend go back to her roots and understand her story and why she'd become a refugee was just magical. And also, I was the first real foreign person to go to this village. And so everyone was asking about my story. And we spent a couple weeks there and we learned that Sunita's home had been converted into a war base camp during the Civil War. And her family had all sort of dissipated. So it was a really difficult trip because you could see the effects of Civil War. You could see all of the schools had been completely shut down and were run down, and the tin had fallen off, and kids were sitting in the mud, scratching the numbers if they were doing math into the floor. And it was also really beautiful. It was stunning because there were mountains and people were really connected to the earth. So if you wanted rice, we'd go to the rice paddy and we'd harvest it. And if we wanted water, we'd go to the end of the mountain, go down to the bottom of the river, and we'd carry it up. And I loved just both of those pictures. But we also came to learn that the Civil War had created 1 million orphaned children. And while I was in Nepal, I started to really hear and see and feel those stories and see the cold and see the suffering and see what Civil War had done to its people and why they were fleeing to India. And so I was really overwhelmed and I was really sad and I was just lost kind of about what I was going to do. And this one day, down in this little valley when I was leaving Sunita's village, I walked across a riverbed. And it was just a dry riverbed. You've probably seen them. There was really nothing there except for dry sand and rocks. And I looked up and I saw dozens of children breaking rocks. And they were all kids just like you, and they were picking up really big rocks, and they had mallets, and they were breaking the rocks into 100 pieces. And they were selling, I asked, like, it just stopped me and I started to cry. And I said, why are all of these kids breaking rocks? And I learned that they were breaking the rocks to sell them for about $1 at the end of a really long, hot or cold day. And so the kids were breaking the rocks, and you just stop in your tracks and you're like, why did I live my whole life without knowing that this was happening? Why did I complain about going to school? Why did I not realize how lucky I was? And I was looking at all of these kids and I felt super overwhelmed. I was like, where do I even start? How do I begin? And then I met this little girl named Hema, And she was breaking rocks, and she was sifting through the garbage, looking for something to eat or sell. And I looked at Hema and I thought, she said namaste, which if you speak Hindi or Nepali, namaste, or even you do yoga, namaste means hello, and it means I see you. And so she said, namaste Didi, which means hello, my big sister. And I said, okay, well, I can't do anything about this whole problem. I can't do anything about all of the kids and 1 million kids and 80 million children in the world, but what if I could do one little thing for Hema? And that's it. And then I thought, what can I do? And so I started to study, and I started to read, and I started to learn. I started to learn Nepali, and I realized that the one single best way you can change someone's future and change the whole trajectory of their life is by teaching them how to read and write. And a basic education, we're talking first, second, third, fourth grade, just that. And so what I did is I found a school, and I found a uniform and backpack and everything that Hema needed. I totaled up the total of what she needed. It was $7 for a backpack, $5 for her first set of books, pencil, uniform. I talked to the local school, and just a few weeks later, Hema was going to school. And I watched everything about her day change. She didn't have to break rocks. She was happy. She was joyous. All the kids said, our greatest wish in the world is that we want to go to school and learn how to read and write. And so then this is the part of the story where it got really, really addicting. I thought, oh my gosh, if Hema's life can change that much with just her uniform and her tie and going to school every day and having a lunch, what if I could do this for another kid and another kid and another girl and another girl? And one day I want to walk across this dry riverbed, and I don't want to see a single child breaking rocks. That's my dream. And maybe we can create the world that we want to live in. And I don't want to have to see a kid breaking rocks all day. And so guess what? Now I moved to Nepal, and I started with 5 girls, and then 10, and then 15, and then 20, and then 60 kids, and boys too. And now, this many years later, there's not one single child breaking rocks on the side of the riverbed. And that is the next part of the story. So the first lesson I want to teach you is that don't worry about a big problem. You start with one simple thing. You see something you don't like, and you say, okay, what am I going to do to change it? Maybe a uniform, that's $7. I can help a kid with that. I was a babysitter. I had that. I got that in 1 hour of babysitting. So that's how we solved the first problem. So then I realized, okay, that's one part of the problem, but if you're an orphan, if you lose your family, you can't dream about going to school if you don't have food in your belly and you're not safe and you're not protected and you don't have a family or a home. So I was putting a lot of kids into school, and it was solving part of the problem, but also we had to look at the whole picture. So I thought, what else can I do? And I looked into my babysitting money, and I had $5,000 saved up from the time I was your age. I had saved all of my birthday money. I worked summers at summer camp. I worked nights. I worked weekends. I had $5,000. And guess what? I found a piece of property for sale for $5,000. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy this piece of land, and I want to create a home just like the home that I grew up in. I hated orphanages. I wanted a really beautiful place that was yellow and had swings, and kids could play marbles and listen to music. And I want to create a home that's a dream home for kids to grow up in. And so I found at this point a team, because I was an outsider, and I was learning Nepali, but it wasn't enough. And I met my co-founder, whose name is Tope, and he's this amazing Nepali guy. And he has a wife and 2 kids, and he had left Nepal also during the Civil War. And he had become an orphan when he was 5 and knew the life and knew how to struggle and had been a porter in India. And the 2 of us put our heads together, and we built a team. We started designing and sketching and dreaming of what this home could look like and understanding the local people and what they wanted. And I had nothing left except I had to go back to the US and start babysitting. So I would babysit and house sit and dog sit, and I was reading lots of books and studying the issues and how we solve these problems in development. and then we'd send money over, and in just a few months, we built this, and this was the shell of the idea of what cupola could be, and that's the name of the home. So, we're babysitting, and then at the end of the week, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? We have to put a roof on. I don't know how I'm going to get this money. Okay, I'm going to do a garage sale. And in the US, people love garage sales. I don't think you know what they are, but you basically collect everyone's junk, and you put it in your driveway, and you try to sell it for a little bit of money. And so I ran out of money to build the home, so I did a garage sale, and I needed $2,200 to put the roof on. At the end of the weekend of the garage sale, I had $2,227. And we sent the money over and built the roof. But then something crazy happened. There was a newspaper, and the newspaper took this picture of the house and said, this little girl from New Jersey is trying to build a home and putting kids into school, and they also put it on the cover of the newspaper. And what happened that I didn't know, people started sending $20, $30, $5, $100, and believing in that dream that I had. And in just a few months later, this became the home. And thank you. And did lots more research and registered a nonprofit, and people started helping and believing, and kids started doing bracelet sales and cupcake sales, and everyone wanted to help because they knew the story and what I wanted to do and started believing in my dream. And then we built that yellow home, and guess how many children I have now? Today I am the adoptive mom of 58 kids. And in our school today, there's 500 students. And everyone's been given a really loving home and a safe place to be and food. And it's really wonderful. So this is our first ever family photo. And those are my children. I had like so many kids. And it started, and then it just kept building and building, and the family kept growing and growing. And I became a mom, and an adopted mom. And this is me, and it's with my tea in the morning. I drink tea, and I'm surrounded with all of my kids in this photo, and it's my favorite picture ever taken. And the point of this story that I want to share with you is that you might think that success looks like one thing, but it really looks like something else. So I thought I just had to go to college, and all the answers were going to be in me being successful. But it turned out that my life took a way different turn, and something unexpected happens. And so remember those times in your life where you think you're going in one direction, and maybe you get taken off your feet, or you get moved in another direction. It's all for a reason. So I become a mom. This is my first daughter up on the left. Her name's Nisha. She was the first little girl who came into our home. She was 6. And then these are my first 4 girls. And after they lost family or had a really bad tragedy happen, we'd get all of the documents and the paperwork, and they'd come into the home. And a lot of kids, for like the Rock Breakers, would come to the school, and we'd serve lunch at the school. So the story started to kind of grow and grow. And when I was 22 years old and I was a mom, there was this chip called Doritos. Do you have them here? So, you like Doritos? So when I was 22, I was really struggling, and it was hard, and it was like I needed more bedrooms, and the family was growing, and I had to figure out water. We'd carry water from the stream, and life was hard, and it was challenging. I was working really hard. And then another crazy thing happened, and that was that there's a magazine called Cosmopolitan, Cosmo Girl, and they called me up one day, and they said, guess what? You've been selected as Cosmo Girl of the Year, and you get $25,000, and we're going to fly you away to New York City for a makeover with Maybelline. And so that was crazy, and another big chunk of money that I could build and improve the house and paint. And then this other thing happened called Doritos, and Doritos said, well, we want to award you with the Do Something Award for people who do something about a problem. So when I was 22, they put my picture on the back of the Doritos bag, and it told the story, and the story continued to spread and spread, and with that spreading of the story, we could also grow the organization. Some people thought that I was missing when they saw that picture, but it worked out. I wasn't missing. So with that $100,000 from Doritos, um, we also built our first school. And this is the school, it's from bamboo. And this is our lunch. We serve food to every single kid who is hungry or needs a place to eat. One of the big challenges in Nepal is that it's very food deficit. So a lot of kids struggle for food. So the first thing we did was implement a nutrition program. And this is lunch every single day. It's rice, beans, cucumber, veggies, and the kids can eat all they want, and then they have a snack and a breakfast at school. And so that's been a really helpful part of our program, and anyone can come from the community for food. And then the family grew, and this is the kids in their uniforms. And just a little bit about Coppola Valley today. We have a big team now, and we run lots of programs that look at the whole child, probably similar to your school. Coppola Valley School became the #1 performing school in the entire region, serving the kids who were the neediest, so kids who had to beg in the bus park or kids who lost their families. They became the superstars. They became the first in their families to learn how to read and write after just a few years of running the school. The home continues every single day to take in new children, and then the older children who have graduated come back and help and take care of the little kids, and it's really a big family. It feels just like your family. We have dinner at the dinner table and breakfast all together, except there's 5 kids to a bedroom and I guess a lot more kids running around, but they love all the same things. There's always music playing, always jump rope or something really fun happening, and bicycles. So the home has continued to grow and grow. And as new children come in, the older children also go off and go to college and get jobs. Every single night we do something called satsang, which is a traditional Hindu and maybe Buddhist practice where you sit in a circle and sing songs and we talk about the day. That has continued through our family, and it's really nice in a big family because it's the first time we're all coming together. Beyond me, the team has expanded to lots of caregivers because at some point I couldn't have all of the kids on my own, and it grew beyond me and Tope and Kasum. So we have a really big Nepali team of aunties and uncles and big sisters. This is Saksham and Akriti, and they're with me and they raise the kids every day. So it's way beyond just me. It's grown into a team. These are all the aunties who take care of the kids and help the home run smoothly and help all of the things go as planned. We also started a women's center where we've trained 300 women in vocational training because a lot of what we want to do is prevent children from becoming orphans in the first place. So how do we support mothers and women? So every single day we have about 40 women training on different vocational skills so they can learn things. So this is weaving. It's one of the skills that we give and train women in so that they learn how to make a living. Even though they didn't go to school, they can learn a skill and become self-sufficient and earn a living. And a couple of years ago, I had a new dream to build a green school, a sustainable school that was true to Nepali architecture and was self-sustaining. And so a lot of what we do is grow a lot of our own food. We have cows, we have chickens, we have goats, so the kids learn subsistence farming, which is really important to the culture in Nepal. We have our own cows for milk. We have 9 of them, and we try to generate everything we can from ourselves. So that's sustainability. And then this is the new dream that we had, to build a school that was beautiful. I wanted the kids to go to the school just like yours that was the best. Just because they don't have much doesn't mean they don't deserve a really good education. So we dreamed about building a school that was like a little Nepali village where you could have everything you needed. There's a safe home for girls. There's a safe home for children. There's rainwater harvest and soccer and everything we could ever want. And then we made that dream come alive. So you can plan it, you can dream it, and you can do anything you want. This became the school, and this was Coppola Valley's school, the new, expanded, amazing version that can take in even more kids. And This was the grand opening of the school in February, last February. So, a lot of dancing happens at Coppola, lots of music. These are the new classrooms. They look just like yours. That's kind of what I wanted to create, is a learning environment that was really positive and nice. Really good teachers, because the most important thing in any school, as you know, are the teachers. So they're all local, amazing young men and women. There's a medical clinic that serves anyone who needs medical treatments or vaccinations or basic care so that they can stay healthy and we can thrive and grow as a community. And there's even solar panels, so now we have power so that the kids can learn. So this was the most recent dream as it grew and expanded. And these are all the kids. They're literally sitting, it looks exactly like you. And kids want all the same things around the world. So we've won lots of recognition and lots of awards and lots of really good things. But I think the most important thing that I like to remind people is that you have to build a life that is purpose-driven, that you love, find something that you may be unexpected, but really find your passion. This was me. Just end of the story is that I also met my husband, and we got married with all of the kids on the top of the mountains. And I met my husband as well, and he moved to Nepal to be with the kids and raise our family. So I had 8 flower girls and so many groomsmen and bridesmaids, and that's our wedding photo. I also, last year, the year before, I was pregnant, and I had my first biological baby. So I had 1 baby from my tummy and 58 that were adopted. But I went back to the US to deliver my baby girl. Her name's Ruby. And I felt a little bit guilty about going all the way back to the US to have my baby, but I had to leave Nepal where it wasn't as safe. And I was looking at my daughter and realizing, like, wow, love is so special, and children are just so amazing, and I felt so lucky to have so many experiences of motherhood. And I was looking at my daughter and sitting in the sun in California, and my first daughter called. My phone, my Facebook Messenger was ringing. This is my oldest daughter, Nisha. You might remember her from the photo. She was the first girl who I ever adopted, and made me a mother. And Nisha called me on my phone, and Nisha was about to go to college, but she called up that day and she said, "Mom, I have to tell you something." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "I just got into a really good program called Global Citizen Year, and I got a full scholarship to take a gap year. And I want to go and travel to Africa and go to Senegal." And I was like, "What? Are you sure? You don't want to go to college first?" Because she had a full college scholarship as well. And she said, "No, I really want to go, and I want to give back, and I want to travel, and I want to do what you did." And so the whole story continued. And Nisha, my oldest daughter, took a gap year this year and went to Africa and is now in college. But the story has become full circle. So you never know where things end up. So I just wanted to go over a few stats to leave with you before we go to questions. We still have 1 in every 3 girls in Nepal are married before they're 18. So they get married as children. It's called a child marriage. We need to work to fight against child marriage. What a gift to be able to choose who you marry and when you want to marry and not be forced into it. This is one of the issues we really work towards. We still have almost 50% of women and girls and people in Nepal who cannot read or write or sign their own name. As a world, we need to work towards literacy. When we see literacy, we see peace and change and positive development and the end of poverty. 3 billion people, almost half our world's population, are living on less than $2.50 a day. So we really have to think about how we can give back. When you're sitting where you are and you've become educated and you can choose who you marry and you're free, think about the ways that you can give back to improve the rest of the world and improve children around the world. And we'll skip that, but You can follow us on social media if you're on social. We're at blinknow.org, and we post stories of the kids and the journey, and I'd love for you to follow along about life in Coppola and the kids there, and you to continue to learn about Nepal. And thank you so, so, so much for listening today. Thank you.
Okay, this is an opportunity now, I think, for some questions. So if you've got any questions, Mr. Morley and myself will be going around with the microphone. Mr. Morley will go down this side. I'll go down here. Okay.
And you can ask anything you want, I promise. I won't laugh or anything.
Is there any way you can donate money?
Yes, you can. Every little bit matters, and we have plenty of kids who have done little things or donated a birthday gift instead of a gift. They've said, hey, can you donate? So if you follow along on the website, thank you. There's a way that you can support and help by enrolling a kid into school. A school lunch is like 25 cents. There's so many ways to support a kid directly, so thank you for asking and getting involved. And most of all, I say to kids, just be kind to each other. I can already tell you're such good kids because I see you in the audience and how behaved, and I can see your kindness, I feel it. But just stay kind to each other and look for opportunities to give back. Yeah.
Did your parents approve of your decision?
My parents, yeah, good question. So I called up my mom and dad one day from a rickety old phone booth in Nepal. And that's when I asked them, I said, oh, can you send me over my babysitting money? And my mom was like, no, absolutely not. That's enough. You've put off college way too much. You're a woman. You need to go to school. And my dad actually really listened, and they asked a lot of questions. At the end of the day, they were like, you know what? It's your money. If you want to, like, go buy this piece of land and build this house, like, good luck. And just make sure you're being wise and really thinking and learning. So it was really hard at first. They were scared for me to move so far away, and it was after the Civil War too, so they were a little bit nervous. But then, as the years passed, and I've been there for almost 15 years now, since I first left home, they've come to visit, and the kids call them Grandma and Grandpa, and it ended up being really good. But at first, they were nervous, and they were worried, but I'm really lucky that they said yes, and they were like, okay, it's your life, and you make your decisions, and they were those kind of parents. I have a lot of friends that were like, my parents wouldn't let me take a gap year, they wouldn't let me do this, so I was really lucky. Thanks for your question. There's so many, oh my goodness.
This is not really a question.
What age did you start building the school?
Yeah, so I was about 20 years old when we first started with the home, and 19 when I was enrolling kids into school, and 21, 22 as the school was being built and things got up and running. So when you're young and you're doing something new, I think the most important thing is that you just become really educated on the issues. You see who else is there, you learn from other people, you read a lot. And I think the good thing about being young is that you know, okay, I don't know the answers, I don't know how to fix this, but I want to find out. I'm going to work really hard. And I think the biggest thing about my story and our story is that we just work really hard every day to do what we do. So even though I was really young, it helped in a way, because I was like, I can do anything. I think I felt like we can save the world. We don't have to have kids breaking rocks on the side of the riverbed. That's silly. It's an easy problem to fix.
This is not really a question, but I just remember when you were talking about how you were bringing some kids into schools. My mom, she found this website that's in Turkey that some kids that are, some families that are not able to like fully like pay for school, she chooses a person and she helps them, she pays for some of their tuition until they graduate college.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, there's so many good ways to support another person in need. And I'm so happy that your family is aware of those issues, especially in Turkey. It's really important, especially with refugees right now. They need our support. Thank you for sharing.
Do you still go to Nepal and build stuff there?
Oh yeah, so I live in Nepal. I live in the kids. I live with the kids in the home. They all call me mom. So I'm there for most of the year. And the guy I married, he's Canadian, so sometimes we travel to Canada. Sometimes I get really lucky and I get to come here to Dubai, or this was my first time in Abu Dhabi. So I travel sometimes, but for the most part, I just live in Nepal all of the year. I've learned Nepali, which is what we speak at home. And yeah, it's a really, really lovely life, and I want to be surrounded by children always. It makes me really happy. So I'm lucky I found something that I really love, and I'm lucky I get to live in Nepal too.
How would you communicate and speak with the kids before you actually learned how to speak?
Oh, good question. So, um, there was the kids always tell stories. They're teenagers now and they're in college, but they tell stories. And we actually started satsang, that little talk around the fire when we sit in a circle. We started by learning each other's songs. So we'd sing Nepali songs and sing English songs, and and then just little by little, like Nisha, the oldest, after a year, 2 years in the home, she started reading Harry Potter. She was just super smart and wanted to learn. So they were learning English as I was learning Nepali, and we always say we like met in the middle, and that was really nice. But the first couple years were so hard for me, and I had people to help, like my friend Chetna, she's Nepali, and she came and helped me teaching with the kids' homework, and that was when building a team became so important, and a Nepali team too. I really needed that. Wow, I'm so impressed with your questions. I think you're the best school I've ever talked to, by the way. Ever. And I go to a lot of schools. Really. You're all so good.
How did you learn how to communicate with the first friend you made?
How did I make friends?
Yeah, because you didn't like. How did you first learn how to
Yeah,
speak Nepali?
I was so lonely in the beginning. And it was strange too, because a lot of my friends were in college and they were having a really different experience. And believe it or not, it was before the time of like cell phones. Now, if I want to talk to my friends around the world, I FaceTime or you text. But it was before that time, and it was really lonely, and it was hard to make friends. And I found that my Nepali peers were very different because they had a different experience. But slowly, like luckily I had my co-founder and his family, and just slowly, little by little, especially learning the language. If you can learn languages, just do it. It opens up so many relationships for you, and breaks down those barriers. And we're lucky we speak English and you go to an English-speaking school because it helps. But yeah, it was really challenging. I've had so many hard times, but slowly, little by little, I built friendships and community, and I met other moms, and that was really important.
So, what's your next step now? Are you gonna like? What do you want to do when you go back to Nepal?
Yeah, so I go back to Nepal on Friday, and just before I came here, I got two 3-year-olds on the same day, on like the same week, and a 6-year-old. So first and foremost, I'm a mom, and then second, I'm a CEO. So I run the Blink Now Foundation. Nonprofit is a really great field to go into, development work. You can work for the UN, you can work for INGOs and NGOs. I really, as you grow up, look into that field. So I stay really busy, I work a lot. And my next dream is to take all of the learnings from our projects and our programs and the how-to guide of what we do and share it with the world, because there's still so much work to do, and I feel like a lot of times people want to do this work but they don't know how, and I want to take all of the mistakes I've made and all of the learnings and share it and write it and hopefully have more Coppolas and projects around the world. And I want to see in my lifetime, when I'm old and when I'm gray and sitting on my rocking chair, my dream is that we don't have starvation and that children are not suffering and that the orphan numbers continue to go down, so we strengthen families. And I want to see that in my lifetime. I want, when you get older, that we don't have severe poverty and the suffering of children. So our mission at our foundation is to keep every child educated, safe, and loved. And that's my dream. No, thank you.
Did you do any other projects in other countries?
Kind of. So what I do for fun is a lot of other people doing work in other countries. they call us up, and I get on the phone with like Rwanda or Sri Lanka or Newark. It's an inner city area where I'm from, and I talk to them and I teach them and I consult them. Okay, what's the problem that you have, and let me help you get through it, and this is what we did, let me share this curriculum. So it's a really fun part of my job that I get to kind of teach other people who are younger than me or who want to do this or get stuck somewhere, or how to manage the nonprofit side of things. So in a way, that's been really fun for me. Like, I get to share it, and we also share the story, and we tell people, like, you don't have to move all the way to Nepal. You don't have to go 8,000 miles away. My story is kind of extreme. Just do what you can where you are with what you have. So that's a really important part of the message that we try to share in making the world better. And then people hear it and they're like, okay, I can do this or I can do that. And there's been lots of projects from people who saw the story and were inspired to help, which is fun.
How much money are you raising right now?
Yeah, so every single year, this is crazy, we have to raise over $1 million. And it's a lot of work to run all of those projects, the medical clinic. I have 120 kids in college right now who have left the school. So yeah, we're always fundraising and spreading awareness. We apply for lots of grants, and we share the story. But it wasn't always like that. We started really, really small. Remember, like, it's been 15 years. So you grow and you take one little step and then another baby step and another baby step. And that's why we're also working to make it sustainable. So yeah, a big part of my job is looking for grants and opportunities. Actually, that's why I'm here. I was applying for something called the Zayed Prize, which was a grant for supporting sustainability in the world. We didn't win this year, but we're going to come back next year.
How long have you been taking care of the kids in Nepal?
So I think I was 18 when I moved and started traveling there, and 20, about 19 or 20 when I adopted Nisha, and now I'm 33. So it's been like 13 years. And it's really fun now because they're all in college and going to high school, and they are getting taller than me, so I'm like a teen and adult mom, even though I'm not supposed to be. It's very rare to have like kids when you're like college kids when you're 33, but it's really fun. I love them. We're very, very close.
Why is your charity called Blink Now?
Good question. So I think we can all change the world in the blink of an eye. And it's about change the world in the blink of an eye. What little thing can you do? What little action? What little step? Like, it's simple. For me, it was like, okay, Hema, I can fix that problem. Blink, boom. Like, how can we do it? And I think people wait a lot. They wait and they think they don't matter, and they think, oh, it's not possible, we can't do it. So I'm always like, no, we got to do this. Like, just make it happen. So that's how I was 18 and I came up with that name, Blink Now.
Did you at any moment have regrets?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. I think we all have regrets, and I've been through some really, really difficult, challenging things in my life that I didn't think I would get through. And I thought, oh, I'm going to quit, or this will be the end. And you'll get older and you'll realize, yeah, you wish you could change things, or, oh, like, I could have, maybe done this a little better at that time. But also, when you make a little mistake or you go the wrong direction, it makes you stronger. When you have hard things, it makes you a lot stronger. And I feel really, really strong having taken a lot of risks and doing things the hard way. So, yeah, I think we have regrets, but you also have to know, like, oh, I'm standing here and I'm still here and I'm still fighting, and I have something that I love. So that's really good.
Are you thinking about getting more kids?
Yeah, always. So just so you know, like, we get thousands of kids that get referred to us every single year, and we really choose the ones that are very needy. And if we can help kids in a way, like, our number one goal is to keep a child with their family, in their culture. So we really want them to stay in their village, in their culture, if we absolutely can. So we support them through a family development fund. And that's why we have the school and nutrition, medical clinic, after school program. But there are times when you have to, sadly, a kid has to come and live in the children's home or in an orphanage, and that's the worst case scenario, but it happens every single day. And that's why I got 3 kids last week. So it's always growing, but really slowly. It's in extreme circumstances that we would bring in a child to the home or into the safe home as well. We have 2 home projects that we're running. So yeah, one day there was a 4-day-old baby, and it was like, okay, everybody get ready, 4 days old, like you just make it happen. And it's strange because when you're pregnant, you expect like, okay, it'll happen in this day on 9 months, and sometimes in Coppola, it's like, okay, tomorrow I get a 3-year-old. I don't know their name, I don't know if they're a boy or a girl, but it's also really magical to watch them come into a family, and I'm so lucky I get to do that.
I would like to thank you so much on behalf of NAS Dubai for coming to speak to us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think, Maggie, we all echo that. Maggie, if you wanted them to take away 2 messages today that you wanted our students to move forward and hear, what would those 2 messages be?
Number 1, we got this. We can do this. We can end extreme poverty in our lifetime if we work together. And number 2, don't get distracted by things that don't matter. Like, spend your time doing things, learning things, growing. Don't get distracted by negative things or what people say or how you look. Like, we're the lucky ones. We're like the top 1%. We're literate. We get to go to school. We have so many privileges. So look for ways that you can give that back and forget about all the small things.
Thank you very much. Everybody, Maggie Doyne.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And I'll give you a promise back, Maggie. These are a bunch of students who are going to change the world. I guarantee that for you.
Yeah, I know they are.
I guarantee that. Okay, so we're now at the process where we're going to steadily leave the auditorium. So can we start dismissing from the back, please?
Oh, they're so sweet. They're really good. I've never seen that age sit like that. Like completely locked in. Like just like every eye. That's normally they're like a little like they're so, and then they're also just like sitting in their suits, like they're like adults, you know? I've never seen anything like it. Maybe I'm also just used to Americans, like American public school.